My wife said she was carrying her ex-husband's baby for $80,000 and expected me to take care of her. So I filed for divorce and kept the dog. By month 4, her ex stopped paying, and she's raising his baby alone. Hello Reddit I+ here. My name is Liam Barrett. I'm 36 years old, and I work as a civil engineer for a company that designs high-rise structures across the Midwest. Until a few months ago, I believed my life was steady, predictable even. I had a wife I adored, a home I'd built from the ground up, and a golden retriever named Milo who greeted me like I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. My wife, Samantha, was 33, a freelance web designer who mostly worked from home. She had that creative energy that made her magnetic, always sketching, painting, rearranging things in the house for no reason other than it felt off. We'd been married 6 years, and though we'd had our share of ups and downs, I thought we were solid, or at least I did, until the night she sat me down on the couch with a big announcement that shattered everything I knew about love, loyalty, and trust. Samantha had been married once before, to a man named Caleb, a real estate investor. They divorced 5 years before she met me. According to her, it was amicable. She'd wanted to chase her freelance dream. He'd wanted kids. They split, supposedly with no bad blood. I didn't see any reason to question that. Caleb would text her occasionally about design projects or community events, and she was upfront about it. I wasn't the jealous type, never had been. In hindsight, that blind trust was my greatest mistake. Around early spring, Samantha's habits shifted. She started keeping her phone on silent. She'd step outside for client calls, whispering near the fence like she was afraid the house would hear her. Her laptop, once an open book, was suddenly off limits. At first, I brushed it off. People go through private phases. Then she started mentioning Caleb more often. He's launching a new housing project. He wants me to help with branding. I'd shrug it off, thinking it was just business. After all, Caleb had moved on. He was dating a woman named Elena, and from what Samantha told me, they were serious. It was a Tuesday in late March. I'd just gotten home from a 10-hour site visit. Dusty, exhausted, ready for leftovers and a beer. Samantha was sitting on the couch, her legs tucked under a blanket, her eyes bright with something that looked like excitement. She patted the seat next to her. I need to tell you something important. I smiled, half joking. You're pregnant? She hesitated. Not exactly, but close. Then she said it. She told me Caleb and Elena had been struggling to have a child. Elena couldn't carry a pregnancy due to a health condition, and adoption had been a dead end. So Caleb, her ex-husband, had come to her with a proposition. He offered her $85,000 to act as their surrogate. His sperm, Elena's egg. She would just be the carrier. I sat there, blinking, trying to process the words. She kept talking, her voice calm, like she was explaining a new client project. She told me she'd already agreed, already signed the contract, and the embryo transfer was scheduled in 2 weeks. That's when the room stopped spinning, and reality came crashing down. You already agreed? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded. It's for a good cause, Liam. I'm helping people start a family, and the money would help us too. Pay off part of the mortgage, maybe take that trip you wanted. I stared at her, stunned. You made a decision to carry your ex-husband's child without even talking to me? Her expression hardened. It's my body, my choice. You should support me. Support you, I repeated. You want me to take care of you while you carry another man's baby? She frowned, like I was the unreasonable one. You're overreacting. It's just 9 months. It doesn't mean anything. The audacity was unreal. She even pulled out a folder and showed me the payment schedule. $20,000 after confirmed pregnancy, $15,000 after each trimester, and the rest upon delivery. She said Caleb's lawyer had drafted the agreement, and she didn't see a need to waste money on her own legal review. That was the moment something inside me broke. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I simply packed a bag, grabbed Milo's leash, and walked out the door. I checked into a hotel, turned off my phone, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. The next morning, I called my sister Nora, who was a family law attorney in Oregon. When I told her everything, she was quiet for a long moment before saying, Liam, you need to protect yourself right now. If she gives birth while you're still married, you could be considered the legal father in some states. You'd be financially responsible for a child that's not yours. That sentence hit me harder than anything Samantha had said. Within 24 hours, I had a meeting with a local divorce lawyer named Janice Doyle. She'd been practicing family law for decades. When I explained the situation, she actually leaned back, exhaled, and said, Wow, I've seen some bizarre cases, but this is a new one. She asked about our assets. The house? I'd paid 75% of the down payment. savings, $100,000 combined, my retirement fund, and of course Milo, the dog registered in my name. Janice didn't hesitate. File for divorce immediately, she said. And do it before she gives birth. We'll argue she made a unilateral decision that violated marital trust. You'll keep the dog and likely most of the house equity. I signed the paperwork that afternoon. Her reaction. 3 days later, Samantha called me, crying, apologizing, rationalizing. She said I was being cold. She said the transfer had already been successful. She was pregnant. She wanted me to come home and work through this like adults. I told her calmly that I had filed for divorce. Her tone shifted from tears to rage. You can't just walk away from me because I'm helping someone. I replied, I'm not walking away because you're helping someone. I'm walking away because you stopped being my partner when you made that decision alone. She hung up. By month 4, I heard through a mutual friend that Caleb had stopped paying her. Apparently, Elena had found out that Caleb and Samantha were in more frequent contact than she'd been told, and she suspected emotional cheating. The surrogacy payments were frozen while legal disputes over the contract began. Samantha tried reaching out again, this time begging. She said she couldn't afford the medical bills, that Caleb had turned his back on her. She wanted to start over, said she missed our family. But by then, the divorce was finalized. The house was legally mine. The dog was with me. And I had peace again, something I hadn't realized I'd lost long before that night on the couch. A year later, I heard she'd given birth, a little boy, and was struggling to get child support from Caleb, who now denied the entire arrangement. Her freelance career had slowed, and she was back living with her parents, trying to rebuild. Sometimes I wonder if she ever realized what she threw away: a loyal partner, a home built on trust, and a quiet, steady love. But then Milo jumps on the couch beside me, tail wagging, eyes full of that pure, uncomplicated affection dogs seem to understand better than humans. And I know I made the right choice, because some betrayals are too deep to forgive, especially when they come disguised as good intentions. 6 months after I walked out, life had finally started to feel normal again. I'd sold the old furniture, repainted the walls, and filled the silence with music and Milo's happy panting. Work was steady. I was even taking weekend hiking trips again. Most days, Samantha didn't cross my mind anymore. Then, out of nowhere, a thick envelope arrived in my mailbox. My name typed neatly across the front. Inside were family court documents, a petition from Samantha's lawyer claiming I had abandoned her during a medical condition and was morally and financially obligated to assist her during pregnancy. I almost laughed. Her medical condition was a pregnancy she chose to have for her ex-husband. But the audacity didn't stop there. Her lawyer's letter said she was emotionally distressed, facing unforeseen financial hardship because Caleb had ceased payments, and that my marital duties included reasonable support during gestation. In short, she was trying to drag me back into her mess through guilt and legal gray zones. I called Janice, my lawyer, and told her everything. She sighed, half amused, half disgusted. She's trying to exploit sympathy, Janice said. Don't worry, she doesn't have a case. You were separated before conception, the child isn't yours, and she entered that surrogacy agreement unilaterally. Still, Samantha was relentless. Over the next few weeks, she sent me texts, long ones, laced with nostalgia and guilt. I miss the way you made coffee in the mornings. Milo still remembers me, doesn't he? You promised in our vows to love me through sickness. I guess you forgot that part. I didn't reply. When silence didn't work, she switched tactics. Her next message came at midnight one Friday. Caleb's left me. I'm alone. I thought you were better than this, Liam. You said you'd always protect me. That one almost got to me. Almost. But then I remembered how calmly she'd told me she'd carry another man's child, and my heart went cold again. 2 months later, I was called into mediation. Samantha showed up looking fragile, dressed in soft pastels, her belly round beneath a pale blue dress. She smiled at me like we were meeting for coffee, not divorce proceedings. Hi, Liam, she whispered. You look good. I nodded politely and sat across from her. Her lawyer spoke first, painting a tragic picture of a misunderstood woman who'd made a selfless choice and been abandoned by her husband in her time of need. He claimed she only wanted temporary support until the baby was born. When it was Janice's turn, she stood, calm but razor sharp. Your Honor, she began, my client didn't abandon a wife in distress. He removed himself from a deceitful and unilateral decision made by his partner, a decision that directly violated the trust within their marriage. This pregnancy was not discussed, agreed upon, or consented to by my client. The biological parents of this child are clearly stated in the surrogacy contract, which, by the way, Mrs. Barrett signed without legal counsel. She paused, then added, and as for temporary support, this pregnancy was financially motivated. There is documented evidence that Mrs. Barrett received payment installments from her former spouse. This was not charity. It was a transaction. Samantha shifted uncomfortably. Her lawyer tried to speak, but the judge cut him off. He looked over the paperwork and said flatly, "This court finds no grounds for spousal support." The respondent had no participation in the decision that led to the petitioner's condition. Case dismissed. Just like that. Over. Samantha's eyes glistened with tears. As people began to stand, she whispered, "Liam, please, can we talk? Just us?" I turned to her, my voice low and steady. "There's nothing left to talk about, Sam. You made your choice, and now you're living it." Then I walked out, never once looking back. Weeks passed. I heard through a friend that Caleb had refused to acknowledge the baby publicly. He'd moved on with someone new, while Samantha was left navigating motherhood alone. She'd tried contacting me again. A few desperate messages asking for help, claiming she couldn't afford rent or medical care. I didn't respond. By then, I'd learned an important truth. Compassion doesn't mean being someone's safety net when they've set fire to your bridge. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my life. Truly, this time. A year later, it's strange how peace feels after chaos. It's not loud or victorious, it's quiet, steady, like the hum of the world finally realigning. I'd moved into a smaller house outside the city, surrounded by trees and silence. Milo had a yard to roam, and I had mornings filled with black coffee and calm. Sometimes I'd get a message from old mutual friends asking if I'd heard from Samantha. Apparently, she'd tried starting a design agency but was struggling. The baby, a boy, was growing fast, and she was raising him alone. I never asked about Caleb. I didn't care, because for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was living in someone else's story. This one was mine, rebuilt from the ground up, with every wall stronger than before. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I took Milo for a walk along the lake trail near my house. The water shimmered in shades of gold and crimson, the air cool and still. A thought crossed my mind. A single, quiet realization. Forgiveness doesn't mean going back. Sometimes it just means accepting what happened, closing the door gently, and walking away without hate. And as Milo ran ahead, splashing near the edge of the water, I smiled, because peace, I'd learned, isn't given. It's claimed, when you finally choose yourself over someone who never would.